Hello all. Welcome to the fourth part of this rewatch of Granada's adaptation of Brideshead Revisited. Episode 4, Sebastian Against the World, opens in the Easter of 1924 with Charles back at Brideshead. He has been there for a week already, but this is the first day when the house has not been full of other guests. It is just Charles now and the flights, which makes this the first evening when it will be obvious that Sebastian is far more seriously drunk than his family had previously realised. Charles tries and fails to avoid a scene. He persuades Sebastian to go to bed and tells the flights that his cold is much worse and that he doesn't wish to be disturbed. Cordelia insists on going to check in on him, and so the truth comes out. A very drunk Sebastian later appears in the drawing room and there is an ugly scene before Charles goes back upstairs with him. The following morning, Sebastian wants them both to flee to Bayswater before anyone else is up. But Charles insists on taking a later train himself in order to say proper goodbyes. There is then a lovely scene roughly halfway through the episode when Charles does get back to his family home later that day and finds Sebastian relaxed and happy and quite like his old self. Let's discuss this first half of the episode in more detail before moving on to Oxford and the rest of it all. Other than Charles, the only other person who is in on the secret of Sebastian being so drunk and helping to cover it up is Julia. This is not because Charles seeks her out to take her into his confidence. She just happens to come out into the corridor at the precise moment when Sebastian has locked Charles out. She asks Charles what is going on, and he is silent for a few moments before finally admitting it. That said, I'm not sure he would have chosen to admit the truth if the person asking was Cordelia or Lady Marchmain. His willingness to be honest to Julia comes from her being closer to him in age and her having been on the periphery of the previous incident down in London with the car crash. He is trusting her to keep the secret, to help avoid a scene, and she goes along with that.
Sebastian, let me in.
What's the matter?
Sebastian's drunk.
He can't be.
He's been drinking in his room all afternoon.
How very peculiar. What a bore he is. Will he be all right for dinner?
No.
Well, you'll have to deal with it. It's no business of mine. Does he often do this?
He has lately, yes.
I suppose it must be something chemical in him. How very boring.
I love the disconnect in this scene between what Julia says and what she does. I get the sense that she cares more than she pretends to, or that she is rather too keen to pretend not to care. She does this first with, well, you'll have to deal with it, it's no business of mine. She tries to leave at that point, but can't bring herself to. Almost against her will, she is pulled back. She glances at Sebastian's door, frowning, looking concerned in spite of herself, then asks Charles how common this is. Then, after the pause, she realises that she is in danger of letting down her armour. That next line, I suppose it must be something chemical in him. How very boring. Feels deliberately chosen to shock Charles. It has a kind of performance to it that reminds me of Sebastian back in episode 1. Later, Down in the drawing room, there are a few times when Julia and Charles exchange glances, both in on the same secret. Julia looks quite unsettled by it all. She is not enjoying herself. When Lady Marchmain plans to look in on Sebastian, Julia preempts her, attempting to head off disaster. But she is then in turn preempted by Cordelia, and so the truth comes out. Nobody else in the family ever finds out that Julia knew. She is Charles's secret ally, briefly, in this scene. I think I feel just a touch of foreshadowing in this. It is the first time that these two try to keep a secret from the world around them. And it will not be the last. Then, after dinner, there is the conversation with Bridie over the port.
Did you say Sebastian was drunk?
Yes.
Extraordinary time to choose. Couldn't you stop him?
No.
No, I don't suppose you could. I once saw my father drunk in this room. I can't have been more than 10 at the time. You can't stop people if they want to get drunk. My mother couldn't stop my father, you know. I shall ask my mother to read to us tonight.
The reading is from a Father Brown story and contains a section that will be explicitly called back to more than once as the series continues.
Father Brown looked him full in his frowning face. Yes, he said, I caught him with an unseen hook and an invisible line, which is long enough to let him wander to the ends of the world and still to bring him back with a twitch upon the thread.
We will talk more about the unseen hook and the twitch upon the thread in later episodes. Watching that clip now, though, what strikes me most strongly is the look on Charles's face. He is just so done with it all. Just a few months before, Lady Marchmain had considered him ripe for conversion. Now, though, his pain over Sebastian is stripping away the veneer of politeness. He makes no pretense at attention to her story. After Sebastian's scene in the drawing room, Charles tries to take him back to bed, but they don't make it to the top of the stairs. Sebastian crumples halfway, and what follows is one of the most famous scenes of the show, visually. I see images from it again and again online. The two of them sitting on the cold marble staircase. To begin with, Sebastian is curled in on himself, sobbing. He can't bear to look at Charles or be seen by him. So full of shame he is at things he said earlier in anger. When Charles reaches to touch him, he flinches away from any contact. He accuses Charles of taking his family's side against him. Charles is still too trapped by politeness and the rules of civilized behaviour. He wants to get Sebastian up to his room, where this can be more private. But Sebastian is having none of it. We cut to the drawing room, where Lady Marchmain announces that she would like to go to chapel and asks Bridie and Cordelia to go with her. Lady Marchmain is perfectly controlled, looking quite calm, although Cordelia is visibly upset by the evening's events. Bridie, the last to leave, takes a moment in the doorway to look sternly at Julia, who is not coming with them. She returns his gaze, stubbornly unmoved. When we cut back to the staircase, Sebastian's head is now resting in Charles's lap. his arm hugging Charles's leg, while Charles's hand rests on Sebastian's shoulder. This is the image of this scene that I see so often on the internet. Sebastian now allows himself to be led upstairs. After the trauma of Sebastian's anguish, the scene the following morning is a breath of fresh air.
Can I come and stay with you?
Of course.
Well, come on then. Get dressed and we can get them to send our luggage on by train.
We can't just go like that.
Can't stay. There's some smoke coming from some of the chimneys. Stables must be open by now. Come on.
I can't go. I must say goodbye to your mother.
Sweet bulldog.
I don't happen to like running away.
And I couldn't care less. And I'm going to go on running as far and as fast as I can. You can hatch out whatever plot you like with my mother. I shan't come back.
That's how you were talking last night.
I know, Charles, I'm sorry. I told you I was still drunk. If it's any comfort to you, I absolutely detest myself.
No comfort at all.
Should be a little. Should have thought. Well, if you're not coming, my love to Nanny.
Are you really going?
Of course.
Will I see you in London?
Yes. I'm coming to stay with you.
Then there is a scene between Charles and Lady Marchmain. She wants him as an ally, to help in her campaign to save Sebastian from himself. But he sees through her and remains unmoved. In her conversation with him, talking about the previous evening, she keeps coming back to how unhappy Sebastian had been. And I am reminded of the boys lying naked on the roof the previous summer, with Sebastian talking about how he was happy, and he rather thought Julia wasn't, and how happiness was all he wanted. "Who are you ashamed of?" Charles had asked him on their very first visit here, in almost their first conversation about his family. "Them or me?" "I'm ashamed of myself," was Sebastian's answer.
You see, it's all happened before.
Well, I can only say that I've seen him drunk often, and I've been drunk with him often. And last night was quite new to me.
I don't mean with Sebastian, I mean years ago. I've been through it all before with someone else whom I loved. Well, you must know who I mean, with his father. He used to get drunk in just that way. Someone told me he's not like that anymore. I pray God it is true, and I thank God for it with all my heart, if it is. But the running away... He ran away too, you know. It was as you said just now. He was ashamed of being unhappy. Both of them unhappy, ashamed, and running away. It's too pitiful. The men I grew up with were not like that. I simply don't understand it. Do you, Charles?
Only very little.
And yet Sebastian is fonder of you than any of us, you know. You've got to help him. I can't.
If I'm going to catch my train...
There is just one other thing that catches my eye with the staging of this scene. When Lady Marchmain fetches the book that she wants to give to Charles, there is a settee of some kind in front of her desk. When Charles takes the book from her, instead of walking around that, he approaches her directly. It isn't immediately obvious at first glance, since he appears to be standing in front of her, but he is actually kneeling up on that settee. The act of kneeling is so bound up with prayer and religion and the other themes of this story that this seems like a deliberate choice on the part of the director or the actors. We do not see any further direct reaction from Bridie or Julia from the events of the previous evening, but Cordelia runs out as Charles is leaving and implores him to give Sebastian her special love. It is worth noting that there is a strong connection between Charles and Cordelia. They like each other and enjoy each other's company, and will continue to do so all through the many years of this story. We saw them finishing a game of mahjong the day before. Cordelia always looks happy to see Charles whenever they meet, and he responds to that, so that they often smile at each other. Charles appreciates her uncomplicated honesty, and she, in turn, recognises his love for Sebastian and loves him for it. This first half of the episode ends with Charles arriving home.
Charles, how are you? I've been waiting for you for hours. What kept you?
I'm so glad you're here. Are you being looked after?
Mm-hmm.
Is everything all right?
Blissful. Peter?
By the way, before I forget, Cordelia sends her special love.
You have your little talk with Mummy?
Yes?
Have you gone over to her side?
No. I'm with you. Sebastian contra mundum.
Good. Then you can find me a drink.
Ah. Well, I don't know whether I'm going to be able to.
Back in Oxford, Charles and Sebastian find rooms together in Merton Street for the following year. But that is all called into question when a plot is hatched to have Sebastian live with Monsignor Bell instead. Lady Marchmain comes to visit, and Sebastian charms her into abandoning her intrigues and agreeing to his living with Charles. But then, that night, he gets horrendously drunk on his own, and then gets caught trying to climb in to see Charles, and so is now in serious trouble with the college.
But I was so happy at luncheon that I gave up all my objections. I went round with him to see the rooms you had chosen. They are charming. He decided on some furniture you could have sent from London to make them nicer. And then, on the very night after I had seen him... No, Charles, it's not in the logic of the thing.
Well, have you a remedy?
The college are being extraordinarily kind. They've said they will not send him down, provided he goes to live with Monsignor Bell. It's not something I could have suggested myself. It was the Monsignor's own idea.
Lady Marchmain, can't you see that if you want to turn him into a drunkard, that's the way to do it? Any idea of his being watched would be fatal.
Dear, it's no use. Protestants always think Catholic priests are spies.
That's not what I mean, but he must feel free.
But he's been free. Always, up till now. And look at the result.
Charles does get irritated with Sebastian, but Lady Marchmain's refusal to listen to any of his advice leaves him still firmly on Sebastian's side in the dispute.
Charles, let's get really drunk tonight.
for one time it could do no conceivable harm.
Promise me you haven't gone over to their side. Contramundum?
Contramundum.
Bless you, Charles. There are not many evenings left to us.
Sebastian leaves Oxford the next day with his mother, and Charles helps Bridie to pack up his rooms.
I believe God prefers drunkards to a lot of respectable people.
For God's sake. Why do you have to bring God into everything?
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. But you know, that's an extremely funny question.
Is it?
Oh, to me, not to you.
No. Not to me.
Charles is left alone in Oxford, miserable and desolate. He has no interest in renewing earlier college friendships that he had left behind him. He has no real interest in being there at all. Back in London, he asks for, and receives, his father's leave to abandon his degree in favour of studying at art school. This scene allows them to continue playing the long-running gag that Charles's father, while he does feel a certain amount of dutiful affection towards his son, is far happier to feel that affection at a distance.
Anyway, I should be at a school.
Abroad. There are some excellent schools abroad, I believe.
Well, abroad or here. I should have to look round first.
Look round abroad.
This is consistently played for comedy. That feels slightly weird, I think, to a modern audience. We are accustomed to having this sort of emotional neglect portrayed as a kind of abuse. In a story so centred around the damaging effects of a complex family relationship, we are sort of expecting to see some damage to Charles from his father's neglect to reflect the damage done to Sebastian. We don't get that. And my theory is that this is because Charles's father is, at least to some extent, a self-insert character for Evelyn Waugh himself. He was the product of an age when children were seen as very much the business of their mother, with no real expectation that their father be involved at all. I think Waugh would have seen Charles's father as a role model. And we will return to this discussion later in the series when we come to consider Charles's behaviour towards his own children. This episode ends at an art school in Paris. I'm going to say my goodbyes here and let Lady Marchmain have the last word. Thanks for listening, and thank you especially to those of you who have left such lovely and insightful comments on previous videos. I do appreciate your engagement and your willingness to connect with me and with one another over our shared love for this wonderful series. I shall be back with the next video in a month.
My dear Charles, Sebastian's stay here has not been happy. Mr. Samgrass has kindly consented to take charge of him, and they go together to the Levant, where Mr. Samgrass has long been anxious to investigate a number of Orthodox monasteries. I hope your arrangements for next term have not been too much upset, and that everything will go well with you. I went to the garden room this morning and was so very sorry.